Hail, hail! The Celts are here, guys, and it feels like after the experiences we had at the weekend, it felt like it would be an eternity before we were going to be getting together again to face up to another match. But here we are again. It feels like the blink of an eye. I'm Quinny, for anyone joining us, of course, and I'm joined, as always, for the Sorare CSC, Celtic Supporters Club, by Sean, Etienne23. Good to see you. And McBrideACE, good to see you, buddy. Guys, bit of a mental weekend. Great to see you back again. How are you feeling? How are you holding up?
Well, Quinny, riding on the edge of a lightning bolt, as always. Wasn't a great game, was it? But the hospitality at Celtic Park was fantastic. The drinks we shared, the memories. We even had McBride subscribe to our Patreon. It was a very successful week outside the game itself. You know, for friendships and bonds, it was great. For actual results in the SO5 in terms of Celtic, not so great.
No, it definitely wasn't.
That was a moment Sunday morning. Woke up with a fear and I thought, feeling a bit rough here, and I realised I signed up to the Odyssey Patience. Oh, no.
That's a £5 a month. Thank you very much. That'll pay for a good few little limited cards. Maybe a couple of Yukiko Bayashi. So that if you stay on for the year, that's a good 50 odd quid getting it. And I see how much you win, McBride. So I mean that's none. And you will be getting the best tips. I mean, the last one was that Jordi Alcivar, who plays for Independiente del Valle, and he came up with an 80 score. So
Mandanda got the clean sheet as well.
Mandanda got the clean sheet. So, good. You know, we do no bad. We try and look at the best probabilities. And when it comes to goalkeepers and so there, the clean sheet is so heavily favoured for a big score that you just... I mean, look, there's Joe Hart, great example. Joe Hart in that game.
Joe Hart in the same sentence.
You know, he just had no real chance to get a big score because, you know, as soon as he concedes, that's it. Even though St Mirren should have probably scored a bit before in that game. Ryan Strain missed an absolute sitter. But anyway, I've been off on a Patreon.
He's not making enough saves, Hart. I mean, I know the season's over and stuff, but even owning all the Joe Harts and everything, I'm kind of like, I wish we would just pack it in with him and just get somebody that can actually make a save. Like, because it's like, anyway, the pressure's off and everything now, but he's looking a bit immobile at the moment for me. Should have saved that first one, I would have thought, but
yeah. I mean, I'm a complete heat magnet on Celtic Twitter. I just have to breathe, and I get like a gang of wee Neds just quote retweeting me and getting all their wee pals to come and, you know, show off in front of each other. But this was years ago. People that do shag spreadsheets and do care about data, we're looking at that signing going, why? Oh, because of leadership and his influence, and yeah, but those are just intangible qualities. Like why can't Celtic Football Club strive to have folk that are tangibly capable of being great in the team and also have the leadership qualities? Why is it got to be one or the other? Why can't we have both? Why am I such a bad guy for suggesting that we try and do that in future? And then we might succeed in Europe, and we might get back to the days that my dad had where we were going to European finals regularly and taking on the world. And that's what I want to see at Celtic. I don't want to see, you know, mediocrity.
I'm very much in the Joe Hart fan club, right? But I've got to admit, when you see the goals that have been in over the last two games, like, you know... Yeah, you've got your goalkeeper over the season has to contribute something, I think. And I think those matches over the last two games were fantastic matches, fantastic opportunities for Joe Hart to contribute to the season, you know, to keep these teams that are in rotation solid and steady, make a big save, keep the clean sheet hot, you know, for longer in the game, you know, and try and build some confidence from the back when some of these other, you know, Yuki comes in, Iwata comes in, Ralston's playing, etc., etc. So I do, you know, as I say, a big Joe Hart fan. We've got Patrick Rare in the house as well. Good to see you, buddy.
How's it going, guys?
Very good, mate. We're just talking goalkeepers and such. But I do feel a wee bit of a sliding doors moment for me personally with Joe Hart after the last two games, because like you do need to contribute at some point in the season. And I did, you know, and seeing the goals conceded, you're like, come on, man. Out of the, like, how many goals can we look at really over the last two games? Let's even say 4. Out of those 4, could you have saved one of them? You know, Like 2 of them, if you're good, you're on it and all the rest of it. And my kind of take has always been, be careful with what you wish for with goalkeepers, because, like we've seen over Celtic's last 3 or 4 goalkeepers, the swings and the pendulums and the pros and the cons of it all. Joe Hart is good, is a solid 5, 6, 7 out of 10 in some cases on a lot of days. But when for me, again, seeing that over the last couple of days, I think, man, I don't know what the situation is with Siegrist, but I would not be surprised to see a different goalkeeper play Hibs.
See, the thing is, I think the point about be careful what you wish for has already got us Joe Hart. I think the fact that we wished, and a lot of people wished, not Scott Bain, I think that's what we're going to get, actually. They wished Barkas away, and Sean and me said emphatically, actually, well, many people disagreed with us, that Barkas was absolutely a great solution for Celtic. Unsurprisingly, had an amazing season with Utrecht. I thought Hart was poor, very, very poor. I think he's been very, very poor for Celtic this whole season. He's, I think, in Europe, kind of laughable at times. That game of the weekend was just another poor performance.
Yeah, I've got to say, I don't have any skin in the Joe Hart game, but the 3 gentlemen to my left, as that first Curtis Main goal went in, the atmosphere got very frosty, because I knew that was the end of a few teams.
I've only got one Joe Hart. I've tried to keep my goalkeepers out of Celtic over the last year and a half, because it is a pain in the backside.
I think I shouted error led to goal. Because even Ralston hit the ball through, I think I turned to Mark and she said, error led to goal. And
You did? Yeah, actually did. Error led to goal.
That actually confounded it. That was like the bit that it was like Joe Hart conceding was sore, but Anthony Ralston getting an error led to goal was like a dagger on the heart, because I had him as captain.
Quite a lot of attacking points there.
Yeah. Sorry. I think the thing with Joe Hart, right, we've had goalies in the past. I remember Rab Douglas, every time he went to catch a ball, your heart was in your mouth. But guys like Rab Douglas, and that was years ago, obviously, but he was a really good shot stopper. So, he would make a reasonable amount of saves and stuff like that. And Celtic got to a European final with Rab Douglas in goals and all that sort of stuff. Fraser Forster, people would say he's not great with the ball at his feet and all that type of stuff, but he single-handedly won as a cup final against Rangers. Had no right to win that game at all, made 7 or 8 brilliant saves. And I think Hart's in bad form, but the problem is it's not so much we're conceding goals. I think we're conceding goals where you think he's got to save that. That's the problem. He's got to earn that out. If you can't earn that out, then I think we've got to look at trying to upgrade him, because it's basic saves. First goal was just, he's just got to save that.
Here's how I look at it. See, if you play blackjack at a casino, what is it? The house is 51%. That's in favour of them, every hand. They've got the tiny wee percentage in their favour. And if you select football players over a long period of time that are not very compatible with the overall style that you're trying to implement, or they've just got a net negative outcome on the team, obviously, if you're at that poker table, you're at that blackjack table playing, the longer you play, the more likely you are to get beat, the more likely you are to see negative variance and things to go bad. And I feel the same with Joe Hart. The longer he's number one, the more likely we are to see these bad moments, for the sentiment to turn sour, for fans to start getting on his back. And I don't think it's very fair on him, because he's just getting selected to play in the team and doing it to the best of his ability and trying to muster up as good a performance as he can at this stage in his career within something that's a wee bit demanding, of his skills. So I just think it's time to find someone a wee bit more optimal for that team. You've got guys like Arajanet, Muric, those kinds of crazy goalkeepers. Hearts will be in mouths with him, but it's fun. And there's a chance to take out people's presses in Europe and just go for it. Just go for it. Just let's see it. Let's see Maeda and Kyogo and Muric and all these wild players just going for it. And instead of Joe Hart kind of being awkward at playing it for the back, and big Carl Starfelt, it's like Megatron just try to turn and get his body in the right position at times. And but yeah.
I think the thing with talking about, I've seen a couple of people in the comments there talking about prospective keepers, and I think if you look at the J League, where obviously Ange has spent a considerable amount of our resources already, I've already mentioned before that I think it's going to be Kosei Tani that's going to be selected by Celtic in the summer with a view to signing in the winter window with a view for starting the following season. But if you look at most J League teams, they have a keeper that can play out. I mean, I watched a considerable amount of J League games. For example, even Chizuru Osaka, they have Kim Jin-hyun, who used to be the goalkeeper for Korea. Yeah, I mean, there you go. That was some of Kosei Tani's highlight reel there. But even like keepers like Kim Jin-hyun and Sugeno at Consadole, these are older keepers, right? So like you can't even put down age as an issue for. They're probably both about the same age. I mean, Sugeno's older. He's like considered like ancient in our world, right? Go and watch highlights of Sugeno. He is fit as a fiddle and he passes the ball out. By the way, he makes like 30, 40-yard passes, just perfect out from the back. Brilliant keeper. They don't have that stigma really of, you know, a guy gets to a certain age and he's out. Like there's in Korea and Japan, there's lots of keepers that playing well into their late 30s and even early 40s as well. So I think that will be on his radar for sure. I think I've seen someone mention the A-League. Obviously, Berigiti came to to Dundee United from the... yeah, there it's there. He came from the A-League, high, you know, full of praise as well, and I think he's had a fairly underwhelming season, to say the least. I would say if he's going to... and he came with an absolute glowing set of references. I would say if Ange is going to go into that region, it will be the J League. It will not surprise me that there will be a player unveiled at the end of the J League season.
It's quite hard to get young goalie as well, isn't it? It's quite difficult. Sorry, Quinny.
One thing I was going to say, I had this in my notes for when we're going to be talking about this today, right? But the Japan goalkeeper culture, or the J League culture, or whatever that we're maybe going to cite in here, that Ange has been a part of, obviously having managed over there, is that goalkeepers play like way longer. And as we know with some of them, obviously Sugeno, some of these guys are pretty good, but some of them aren't, and they still play all the time, you know, because of different reasons. And is there maybe a little bit of that culture with Ange where, you know, like, is there maybe an acceptance of, you know, like, everyone that's not a 9 out of 10 goalkeeper is on a kind of equal peg, and then it is all about those intangibles that we talk about with Joe Hart that really do make the difference? Is that maybe the thinking?
I actually think
is actually the main benefit. The experience is the main benefit.
I think I don't think it is age. I think it's the clubs he's played for and people and people, you know, in the career that he's had. I think the fact that he's came from Man City and, you know, won competitions with Man City, and then obviously he was number one for England. I think a lot that carries more weight than you know his age. I think that 2-year period where he was at a good age for a goalkeeper and he was a sub for Spurs, I think is quite telling. But you know, just to take the point about the J League, I mean, there's not many poor keepers in the J League. Like the K League, I could maybe meet you there, but in like, I mean, I can think of 3 or 4 in the K League that are offhand poor, but in the J League, there's very few poor keepers. I mean, they've got an already like Lanyark, the Australian goalkeeper at Nagoya, who's been like Player of the Year. Nishikawa in goals for Urawa Red Diamonds was the old Japan number 1. He's about 35 now. They've just won the Asian Champions League. I think Kosei Tani is the standout, you know, of the young keepers. I know they've got Sasaki that plays at Reysol, and you've also got, you know, Osaka that plays in San Frecce, who's now kind of into the Japanese national team. He wouldn't surprise me, but I mean, they're all generally very well respected goalkeepers. Even the foreign goalkeepers in there, you know, like Slowick, the Tokyo keeper that's Polish, so these...
We all love a Polish keeper.
Hayakawa of Kashima Antlers. He's having a clean sheet every week.
Exactly. I mean, he came with really big shoes to fill, and kind of getting slagged. And as you say, Sean, he's kept a hell of a lot of clean sheets for
five in a row, I think.
Kashima Antlers. Anyway, and I'm threatening to turn this into the J League podcast, but I think we can all agree that Joe's on a shaky peg.
Yeah, I think the system is on a shaky peg as well. I actually think that, that 2-3-5 thing, I think it's just, it's ran its course for now. We need to try something different because we know people that play for St Mirren, Mark. We chat to them. We know that they know how to prepare for that game. They know they're not going to have the ball a lot. They know they're well drilled. They know our system inside out now, and they know how to play against it, and it shows. And I like it for a lot of reasons. But just try something different. We've got a couple of centre backs that seems to be the general consensus among people that I think are even smarter than us guys when it comes to analysing football on a more tactical basis. They say that Celtic have a lot of good kind of wide centre-backs for a back three, maybe, something like that. Like Iwata could be a good wide centre-back. Kobayashi could be a wide centre-back. And then we'll have a dual monster like a Carter Vickers or Starfelt in the centre. Maybe something like that. I don't know, just change it up. There's a lot of people suggesting we just copy Man City's homework with that mad system, but I don't think we've got the people to kind of implement that. But I don't know, so a wee change of the system would be nice to see, and giving other teams something else to think about, because I think we've kind of exploited it too far now.
We do expect that Iwata is going to change the team a little bit since he signed, right? We didn't expect him to really play much at centre-back, although we all knew that was on his CV, he could do that. What I'm kind of thinking in the aftermath of the game as well, talking about rotation that might even happen coming into the midweek, and back into your point about development of tactics, is this maybe the midfield three we see against Hibs? Iwata is maybe what we've seen at the weekend, some sort of like deep end preparation for Iwata playing behind McGregor and getting used to that kind of thing, with a fully functioning kind of midfield in front of him. Because Kobayashi was maybe a bit of a, could have probably done with the being dropped after the game, let's say. There's no other way of putting it, really. But Iwata going into that midfield, because we probably, I said this going into the St Mirren game, but, Cal McGregor against Rangers was probably his worst game of the season, and Ange as a guy that plays guys on form and all the rest of it, and as soon as you're out of form, you're dropping your place. And McGregor's maybe being captain, maybe got a bit of armour against that, but is the way you do that by shutting Iwata in behind him and moving McGregor forward? And is that maybe what we're going to see over the next week?
Possibly over the next week. I think as a longer term thing, I've touched on before, I don't think McGregor is the player he was 3-4 years ago that has that box to box ability. I think for the short term, yeah, it might be just to play around with the system, and possibly an option for the cup final. But I don't think we're learning anything about the future for this team by playing Iwata behind McGregor. I thought if it was me, I would have liked to have just seen Kobayashi back in there, and I would have probably dropped O'Reilly. And just,
well, my thinking for that is kind of like, because playing Iwata in defence, like you say, you don't really learn about the defence. So what are you trying to learn? Is it maybe somehow a
By the way,
thing,
it was Iwata that basically, that first goal, because we conceded 2 goals and there was lots of Keystone Cops moments, we just forget the first goal was Tomoki Iwata. You're not getting that goal for any other centre-backs. So we scored a goal because we played a centre-back that can progress the ball really, really well. And it was just into Atati, into Furuhashi, goal. That's kind of what we lack. But then are the Celtic support... I don't want to have a go at fans all the time, but are the Celtic support the right support to try things like a smaller guy at centre-back? No, because the hysteria in the stadium has already started before a ball is kicked. The concept that a shorter guy can play at centre-back doesn't fit well with Scottish football fans. They hate it. We've seen Otamendi. He's not that far away from Iwata's height. We've seen Mascherano, Fernandinho. These guys have played at centre-back before, but they've played at clubs that in football cultures that are a wee bit less kind of, you know, obsessive with winning every single game we play. And, you know, I would like to see more of Iwata in that position over a longer period of time, because I think he could bring a lot of positives because we have so much of the ball. But it's just not going to happen. People are not going to accept a guy that small in height being a centre-back at Celtic.
Let's take a step back from that, but like playing Iwata with Carter Vickers is never going to happen, really, is it? Like that's never going to be the centre-back pairing. So why even mess about with Iwata at the back, really?
Because he gives you the first goal. Because Postecoglu is super smart, elite level football brain, like, you know, unobtainable for most people. And that's why he played him. But all it takes for that whole concept to die is a big punt up the pitch, Ralston to bash into Iwata, Curtis Main to go through and trundle it into the legs of Joe Hart. That's all it takes for that, a concept which is probably quite logical in a game where you're going to have 75% of the ball. But that's it dead. I can't see.
I think it's a tough game for Iwata as well, because I mean I watched St Mirren play against Hibs.
77% possession mark. Oh my god.
I watched St Mirren play against Hibs at Easter Road, and they scored a similar goal where it was just route one. The keeper punts it, takes a big bounce, defenders get into a mess, and then striker smash it actually through the legs of the goalkeeper, through Marshall's legs. So a similar scenario. I don't think it's a great way to judge Iwata. I'm also surprised that he did play Iwata there, because I thought that the entire purpose was a bit like Quinny said, to put him behind the more advanced midfielders, or just play him, you know, just play him in there as an 8, a 6 or an 8. I certainly didn't envisage seeing him in that defensive position. By the way, I've seen a lot of him there at Yokohama Marinos, and he was exceptional. He won Player of the Year, playing a mixture of games at central defence and
played a huge chunk of that season that he was MVP at centre back, and he was phenomenal.
I don't think there's any doubt about his centre. Well, there's certainly not any doubt from me about his central defensive abilities in it, and I see one of my favourite players in the world as a defender is Otamendi, who you touched on, and you know, I don't think the height really is that much of an issue. I think it's just something that I think it's just something that people attribute to players without really focusing on other parts of their game. It's just easy. The wee guy gets beaten by in the air, for example. But yeah, I'm not really sure where that is going from Ange in terms of, you know, we've got Kobayashi in there to do that job. Is it just simply that's the end of the road for Kobayashi already? Is it really just we can't get him? He's decided he can't get any more out of him. I mean, the young guy, Lowell, Peter Lowell's son. I mean, we watched him play in that Glasgow Cup, and if fans thought that Kobayashi was poor in the Rangers game, go and watch the video of Lowell against Rangers in the Glasgow Cup final. He was horrendous. That wee guy's not going to be the solution at any point. So I don't know who else is. I don't know if it's just the fact that Ange went, I've got nothing left. I don't have any other options here, because
the league's over. But
get Quinny in at centre back.
The league's over.
I could do a job.
We've got to be careful we don't read too much into it. Like, obviously, Joe Hart thing, right? His form's not been very good. Iwata's come in at centre half. I think that's probably the first time he's played at centre half for Celtic. He's not played at centre half. See, we were talking earlier about the tactics. One of the main problems this season has been we've conceded far too many goals against Rangers, I think. And like obviously 2 at Parkhead, we conceded 3 at Ibrox, and we're far too open in Europe. So it's all right us saying we'll play this style or whatever, and we'll dominate the ball and everything. But we've got to have the right players to do that. And if we go into Europe again and we're playing against Man City or we're playing against Barcelona or whatever, we're going to go and play the same way and lose 4 or 5 goals again, or are we going to actually say, right, we're going to put a Wata in there and play a 3 at the back, or we're going to play 2 defensive midfielders and actually be a bit tighter? Because we can't just keep going on forever just thinking we're going to play 3 up front and score more goals than the opposition or whatever. It's a Champions League.
5 up front. Most Celtic games.
5,
it is a legitimate 5.
I know.
Ozzy Ardila's back in.
It's great to watch it, but like we get humped in the Champions League. I mean, we should have probably picked up 4 or 6 points against Shakhtar, but in all reality, like, you know, we get a good doing in a couple of the games. So I think we were a bit too
Shakhtar away, we should have won, but at home, I think we got away with that. I think they could have really. I think they
missed a sitter, didn't they? They missed a complete.
They did.
Open goal sitter, didn't they?
I think I was in Singapore though, and I think it was like 4 a.m, and I can remember that sitter, but I can't remember most of that game. It was nothing to play for, wasn't it? It was the last game of the season.
Aye.
The
last game of the
Madrid.
Champions League. Or was it?
League.
There you
No,
go. But we were already out by game 5, which isn't great. But we just need to be in that competition doing some serious damage, like the father of Tyson Fury says about that guy in prison. It's going to do you some serious damage.
Do you know?
Shifting mallet.
Yeah, there's a bit of sweary beasties in there, but I think like the just to take your point, McBride, about, you know, playing that way in Europe. You can obviously play that way in Europe and do it effectively, but you need to have players who are comfortable in possession and, you know, more comfortable than the players that we've got just now. I mean, I was a huge critic of Greg Taylor, and I think he's, to an extent, certainly in Scottish League, proven me wrong. But realistically, when we go into Europe, he is going to need to take a step or 2 up again to be, you know, dominating at that level. I think it'll be interesting to see Johnson playing at, you know, a higher level than that. He's excelled playing for us so far. Starfelt is in possession terrible, particularly when it comes to in Europe. I think he's a problem for us in those big matches. Carter Vickers was also not amazing either. Like, I think that a standout in the SPL, arguably, a lot of players. I think we said a lot of fans wanted this player of the year. So that defence really needs to be in shape, in my opinion, to be equipped to deal with some of those teams in Europe. And a lot of it is just what you do in possession. I mean, the way that we are dominating teams in Scotland is we're pushed up into their final third, playing balls along, you know, out wide, and occasionally Starfelt, or most often than not, Carter Vickers takes a let's call it a run, just a gamble run into the box and has a shot, or tries to play one off the other.
Carter Vickers is a weird one because I'd seen this the other day because I was looking at his stats to just understand that player more, why he's so good at Celtic. Do you know he does like 0.5 tackles a game in the Premiership? Half a tackle a game. I just mental how low his actual tackling is. He barely ever gets involved in any situation that involves him trying to win the ball back. It just shows you how dominant Celtic are in the specific. And by the way, another thing before I go, Quinny, because you've only paid for me for another minute.
Look, he's going to run it.
Someone said it, I can't remember who it was, but just like just removing, it was Boys Analytics. See just removing Carter Vickers and that dueling monster who just never loses a physical altercation. See just removing him as an issue because it's very noticeably different. And we've got so comfortable with having somebody like that. Take him out, and all of a sudden you start seeing things happening that we've just not been used to for a season. And it gets a little bit hysterical, a little bit quickly. We don't look at the fact the first goal was scored from our playing a centre-back of Iwata's skill set. we're just focused on those big punts up the pitch and Curtis Main bashing into people and chaos ensuing, which is right. I mean, you don't want that because we should have conceded about 4 goals. So people are right, fans are right to be disheartened by the defensive performance and how easy it was for St Mirren to hurt us, but also, you know, there was some positives for having those players, having a Wah in that position, but it just didn't outweigh the negatives on the day, sadly. Same with Kobayashi. You could say the same for Kobayashi, but what I said to you guys at the table before the game, I was like, see if you're going to do the Awata thing, why do we need Starfelt then? Let's just go all in on the 2 guys that can progress the ball really well. Just go all in on that. Just go for that. And if it crashes and burns, at least you went out going fully for it. Just having Starfelt on the left-hand side of the defence again just was all a bit kind of awkward. And you're like, yeah, he puts in a 62 score on Sorare as well. A huge score for a game where he wasn't particularly impressive. But I'd like to see Celtic just really commit to that. If they're going to try it, when they've got 77% possession, logic says you might as well just really go for it with 2 guys who are really good at that kind of style. But alas, we didn't do that. We kind of did a 50-50 and just don't think we get the reward. I don't, like Mark said it earlier on, I don't know what we learn from a game like that by not just really experimenting with something, really trying something new.
Quinny, do you have the stats for the European games? Are you able to get
yeah.
Because it just, I think that's the there's 2 things is like McBride's point about, you know, with the leagues won, and you're right, but at the end of the day, it's Celtic, isn't it? And people are going to talk about every minute in detail, and we shouldn't be drawn to each at home.
And then we'll get to Hibs.
Yeah, and then we'll get to Hibs. But if you look at like
what'll be better doing, I'll build the tabs. Sorry, I'll just take 2 things. I'll just pull them all up and we can flash through them.
Anyway, Quinny, I actually do have to go, but it was a pleasure to spend
buddy.
half an
Travel
hour
well
with you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully,
take care, buddy.
Better result. See you, Mark. See you, Mark, and Mark. 2 Marks.
Too many Marks.
So this is the first game of the group at home to Real Madrid. We started Giakoumakis. He bullied Militao into submission and was subbed off, if I remember rightly. And then it was very much, the Real Madrid show second half. But
that's the reality. See, that's the thing, though. Like, so
I'm going to say before we go through this, by the way, is we'll only do it as quickly as it's like entertaining or at least interesting. But I'm pretty sure before we get to the end of this, Starfelt, the only game he played Champions League was the final game. I think he was injured the whole group stage, and that's why we had the Jens and the Welsh and all this stuff we had with centre backs, as well as Vickers having a wee spell here or there. But I'm sure when we go through this, you're not going to see Starfelt until the last game.
Yeah. I actually wanted it's fine. I only wanted to highlight Carter Vickers, and that was my point.
That's cool. I was just because we're talking centre backs, just thought I'd throw this in. Just
you can see Carter Vickers there. You know, it's not a sensational performance. And I think like it's not the performance that you would get anywhere near in the SPL. Even that decent, but again, way off the SPL levels. And I think you get Jen's in there. Jen's a decent defender, but
no Vickers in this one.
Yeah, but you can see the general play there. Like I think Declan had touched on Joe Hart there. You can see a lot of Joe Harts with really tiny scores here. But I mean, you can see there you go. There's again Carter Vickers with a score of, and way below the.
Sorry if I'm kicking too fast. Sorry.
No. But you can see the theme anyway, which is that even the colossal Carter Vickers, the guy that we all love, when it comes to Europe, I mean, that was a horror show. That from Jens there. What was that?
Yeah.
2.
Consider the pen.
Yeah, but
I was actually at that game. That was the game we went to the Bernabeu. So, like,
got a free kick.
That was a bit of a humbling. But there we go. But yeah, I mean, you're playing against better teams as well. I suppose if you forget that actually some of those guys were out. I mean, come back to if you leave the stats aside, like Vickers and Starfelt haven't lost a domestic game together for 2 years or something. So like you can see why, obviously, although they've got like certain deficiencies and stuff, like they've been a huge part of the success as well. But like you're saying, I mean, I think turning it to the Hibs game, like obviously Ange just said that he wants to maybe rotate or give people minutes. Why not start Kobayashi and Iwata and try that out? You know, if you're going to give guys minutes or meaningless games, the form's relatively poor over the last 3 or 4 games. So if you're just going to build up to the final, then why not rotate a bit, play those guys, then go back to a kind of more full strength type team for Saturday, and then you've got a week to the final type thing. I think you're going to see all of Mark Patrick Rare's favourite players on Wednesday, you know, your Haksabanoviches and Abadas and stuff.
Can't wait.
Well, that's one thing. I threw the comment on screen there from Chris, and there was another comment earlier from Jim as well. I just want to kind of just reference the Europe part, just where we're moving away from it and move on to the second comment quickly. But like, I think with Europe and all the stuff we're talking about, the main progression obviously is we want qualification, and that doesn't require maybe all the things that you would maybe lay out. We've been discussing as like, oh, you need this to succeed in Europe. You know, us to get like 9 points, we maybe just need to, you know, patch a few holes in the ship and keep it afloat. And we've got some talent and at home and the right draw. You know, we're not maybe that far away from having a decent group stage, and then you build on that year on year incrementally, as you know, as we're kind of saying there. But with Chris as well, what we're also looking at with this, of course, it's like these games and like you're talking about, we're there, Mark. We're moving on to the Hibs kind of part of it. They do mean nothing, like in the league and all the rest of it, but so many of these players are fresh in the door. So many of these players have to find their space in the squad, and the squad as a whole needs to move up a level. You know, even though there's nothing on the table and all the rest of it, work is still being done in this team. There's no two ways about it, and you need to, you know, we need to see progression so that when we go against this stuff, and also there'll be transfer windows, and let's see how that pans out. But it's like, what are these guys giving us? You know, when it's their time, you know, this is your moment. You've got to take it if you want to play Champions League, if you want to play the big games, you know.
I really hope Tati doesn't go. Honestly, like I know Ange said that you might need to prepare for somebody going, and there might be a big outgoing, and we might need to do that to progress and stuff. But see, when you look at all the different types of midfielders and stuff we've got, Hatate, I think, is a guy who's pretty special. So I would forgo other guys going in other positions or whatever to try and keep your best players like him. Because I think what's happened now is, and just before Mark comes in with his Haksabanovic bashing, but Haksabanovic has been pretty poor, I think, the last couple of games. And I think we've got a good squad, but what it shows you is that if you bring one guy in and they're playing with the 8 or 9 other good players, then you can slot them in and you still play really well. But once you get 3 or 4 of them in or whatever, then you're moving down a level. And obviously these guys are not always playing week in, week out, but, you know, the last couple of games, Haksabanovic has been really poor for me. And, you know, he's not the only one. Abada's got a good goal scoring record and stuff, but he still does that thing where he comes on and he just runs straight into a guy. He passes the ball 5 yards to another guy, and, you know, all right, he's young and stuff like that, but he's a professional footballer. At this point, you should be able to take the ball and pass the ball 5 yards to somebody else, not just pass it direct to the opposition. And that's the type of stuff that obviously frustrates like the fans and things as well. And, you know, Abada got an assist, didn't he? So I suppose it wasn't really much of an assist. Just give the ball to
exactly. I mean, he touched the ball to McGregor, who done a great wee move, and then
became the captain, didn't he?
Yeah, he was. I think sometimes those ones can be rather fortuitous, to say the least. But in terms of
his performance.
Because, and again, when that goal goes in, I'm thinking, great, we're seeing McGregor a little bit further forward. Is that part of the functionality of having a Wata start as centre-back? Or is it like prep for, maybe we see, like I'm kind of saying earlier, like, do we maybe see a Wata start in midfield with McGregor and Rio or whatever? Because I make you right, McBride's like, Rio is the only true like playmaker we have in midfield, like a guy that wants to get lots of touches of the ball, wants to pop up all over the pitch, and wants to get involved in it all over the place, all the time. No one else really does that the way, you know, we don't have anyone else in midfield that can do that like him or wants to do it. You know, it's not their bag, if that makes sense. So I think that's why we've seen Ange keep him at the coalface last season and even this year. So I think Hatate is like a must play, because we've lost and drawn the last 2 games, and whether they're going to be chip paper in a couple of weeks, you know, Celtic manager, you don't want to go 3 games without a win.
I think Hatate's our best player. I've said like I think Hatate and Kyogo, in my opinion, are our best players. I think if you were to really go for a third, probably you'd then start to enter CCV into the conversation. But those two guys at this moment are untouchable, in my opinion. Hatate's performance yet again on Saturday was sensational. The guy is he's such a natural talent, so easy in the eye. His movement's phenomenal. His touch is clearly a step ahead from the rest in that league. I think it's quite interesting as well. I've heard some players from other teams commenting on, you know, when they've played against Hatate, and they're just like in awe. Just can't believe that how he makes so much time in small spaces and has that composure. We will miss him like crazy. I reckon if he goes, and it seems like it's going to be difficult for us to keep him purely on the financial basis of the way that we normally operate the club, and our beloved Mr. Lawwell is a big sum of money for him. I couldn't see him going for anything less than 15 plus, and if we did, it would be absolute robbery on us at a scale that we done to Kawasaki Frontale.
Yes, he's the one guy I think, like, if you could envisage somebody playing for a really big club, it'd be him. And like being in the Bernabeu was a brilliant experience. I've not really been to many away games and stuff, and seeing Modric and stuff like that, just the way they move on the ball and stuff. But Hatate was one of those guys where, or when you see Hatate, he's one of those guys where you just think he could be playing for a huge club, and you would slot him in there, and he wouldn't actually look at a place. And like even like the Hearts away game when we won the league there, you know, he was taking the ball in tight spaces, he was taking the ball in, and he was progressing the ball and stuff like that. And I just think he's just such a high level footballer, and sometimes he doesn't get a huge score on SO5 and all that sort of stuff, but if you've actually watched the game, you've seen how he's played, you think he was brilliant. So he's a guy I'd rather we don't want to talk about. I'd hate it if we lost Jota or whatever. I'd far rather he went and we brought in another winger than losing Hatate, because I just don't think we can actually, at the moment, we can replace Hatate in midfield. I'm not saying I'd rather Jota go. I hope he doesn't go either. But if it was a choice of like 2 big bids come in for players, like, I think Hatate would be the one I'd really, really, really want to keep. I think he's been that good.
So the team midweek, I seen the message we sent in the group chat earlier on about, you know, the Ange's words about wanting to give players minutes. I guess that's just like a minefield, really.
Now, can I give you some food for thought, right? I did a wee bit of homework before the stream, right, to see, you know, can we learn anything from Ange playing Hibs so far this year, right? So, got some wild cards for you, right? So, the last game we played them, right, 3-1 win. This is a team that played, obviously, there been no Alistair Johnson. Taylor goes off at 60 for Burnaby, I think. Hatate went off quite early injured. That was the injury. We then seen Hatate miss a few games after that. The game before this was away. We won 4-0. Hatate played right back. Now, Ralston's not been great the last couple of games. And, you know, like...
It's interesting.
You know, Hatate at right back, you know, that's maybe something that catches the eye, isn't it? Again, Taylor goes off, this time injured, around the 60th, 70th minute or so. Midfield has got Moy and O'Reilly in it, so quite strong in midfield. Kyogo started both games, I think, so far. But then the first game of the season, we had Giakoumakis start, get 2 goals in the 6-1 win. Burnaby started as well, got an assist in this game. Haksabanovic played well, it would seem, as well. James Forrest got a hat-trick. Yeah. So
I think this could be a wild team selection. Like, as you were saying, Quinny, like, I don't even think Hart's safe for this one. Whether or not he does rest him or not, I don't know. I mean, obviously, Bain is obviously there for this homegrown status as our number 3 thing. Sagres, I think, is back in training, but he's not made a bench yet. So does he bring him back in and just give him some minutes in case something happens to Hart? I don't know. But when you look at the defence, like, one position he does tend to rotate more than central defenders is wing backs. So I think you'll probably start Bernabei. Ralston, I don't know what he's going to do there, like, you know, because Ralston was pretty poor, obviously, against St Mirren. So does he just stick with him and just say, right, it's going to give you another couple of games to try and find your confidence levels or whatever, or does he do something pretty wild? But I think where you'll see some main changes, I think, is up front. I think you will see Abada, Haksabanovic, and maybe even like actually starting. Because
Forrest, by the way.
Yeah, or maybe Forrest. Yeah, you might see Forrest starting, or you might see something daft like Forrest and Abada playing through the middle and Haksabanovic, like whatever, you know, because
on the right.
Yeah, you might get something like that, I think. And then midfield wise, I mean, he just never ever seems to rest McGregor. But like, surely he's got to get a rest into him and then play him against Aberdeen in the Flag Day type game. So
Could
I
happen.
mean, it might not. McGregor might just get his minutes managed because he just seems to play all the games. And then obviously Moyes injured at the moment. He doesn't fancy Turnbull. I just don't think he's really got. I
agree with that.
can't really see him want to play Turnbull. Would probably just roll out O'Reilly again and just leave Turnbull there on the bench or whatever, you know. So, but I think it's going to be really difficult. But I think I'm Sorare wise, I think I'm just going to try and I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm drafting my teams. I just want to change them again. But I think I'm going to kind of just gamble on there being rotation and just try and find a team that he ends up putting out and it's such a limited game week. There's no many teams playing and stuff like that. So if you get 5 out of 5 and you get a couple of decisives, this is a game week where you could be quite high up a leaderboard. So I don't think you overthink it. I think you just kind of look at the team at the weekend, realise that team's probably not going to play again, and bring in some of the kind of fringe guys to mix it up a wee bit.
Hibs are not a bad team either, by the way. Like I think Hibs are vastly improved.
So let's try and try and think of this in terms of how you'd approach this, because I'm looking at Hibs' recent form being a David Marshall holder, knowing that they are conceding goals for fun, right? So, we're talking about some of the rotation. I think this is a great game to start and get him some confidence goals. You know, we've seen Forrest get a hat-trick there at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then some of these, maybe Haksabanovic, we've seen him play well against Hibs already this year. But I think, Hibs are a decent team. But I think if you're looking at it as a manager, well, that's a team where maybe you try the second string strikers again, like you maybe did at Ibrox, where he's like, let's give them a chance at a big stage for the Ibrox game, and try and stress test them. And in this game, it might be a bit of an easy hit where on paper they're conceding for fun, put a good team and put them under pressure, good team on the pitch, put them under pressure, and maybe these guys can get their confidence levels up.
Yeah, surely UK will come back in.
I think so.
I think UK will come back in because if he's want to go UK and Starfelt for the cup final, then he's probably just kind of taking UK out after the Rangers game and stuff like that. But you want to give him more games. I mean, he's not played a lot of games for Celtic, full stop, has he? And if you go back to the kind of actual first 11, you've not got any Vickers to pick in the final. So one of these guys is going to have to play beside Starfelt in the cup final, and McBrideACE seems a natural solution, doesn't he? Because the game that UK and Starfelt played beside each other at Hearts, the balance did look better, and we kept a clean sheet as well, 1-0. So I don't know necessarily whether we deserved a clean sheet that day, but it did work a lot better than obviously the team at the weekend and stuff. So I think UK will probably play. I think Bernabei, he'll just want to give him minutes. I think Greg Taylor will probably get a rest, or maybe it'll be a kind of 60-30 situation where they both get some minutes in the game. And I don't know what he'll do with Ralston. I mean, I'm a big fan of Ralston, but he was horrific. It was rubbish.
So, I mean, something drastic like putting, Hatate at right back, which, by the way, I thought Hatate when he played right back for us was absolutely unplayable.
I think he was what people thought Juranovic was, really. Like, see those 2 games he played, like he was like the playmaker from the back, like we see in in some of the elite level teams, how they do that with the same way we've done a little bit with Taylor, but he was amazing at it,
Yeah, he was absolutely sensational. I think there was another game. What did he not score twice?
2 games in a row he played.
He was superb there. Does he want a piece of that again? I don't know. I think that this game is. I think if there was a week between this game and the other game, I might be thinking differently. But it's in such quick succession, I don't know. It's just going to be a lottery, like you said. I can understand why you might try Hitati at right back, and I think if he did, I'd be delighted because I'd be putting him in for a good solid 100 in this game.
So-
but
The only problem with Hitati is he obviously he was out for a while as well, so he has managed his minutes since he came back. But when he came back in, was it the game he played against Rangers in the semi-final? That was the first game he played, and he chucked him right in for the start. So that suggested to me that he could have probably played him before that, but he was holding him back to make sure he was going to play in the Rangers game, and then he's started every single game since. But with it being like the 3 games in the space of a week, is he going to risk like having a recurrence or whatever of that and ending up missing them for the cup final? So I think he would be a good candidate for somebody to say, no, you can come on for the bench or whatever. Oh, Ange seems to love Hitati and McGregor. They hardly ever don't actually start when they're available. Even the game at the weekend where we all thought maybe we would rotate a wee bit, they started. So
the thing is, I mean, I've been thinking about this, in the build up to this game, obviously for Sorare reasons, try to second guess the picks. But I think one of the things is that when you're in Europe, and the season's up and running, these midweek games are pretty much every week. So the idea of playing 2 games a week really isn't that crazy.
Yeah.
So I think,
and what we've seen from Ange before is he does duet people in that situation. We've seen that before when we were playing Europe, where there is a subset of guys that swap around.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, obviously, Jota's stayed on for the full game there, and he left Furuhashi on as well. So that to me suggests that neither of them will probably start on Wednesday night. Just because he said he's going to give other people minutes, and just because you've got Flag Day and Saturday, and you've got the final coming up, I think they would be stonewall. They're a risk of starting. It doesn't mean they're not going to come on the last half an hour, score 2 goals or whatever, because they could do that. But I wouldn't be putting much money on them actually starting the game, to be honest.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Taylor.
Yeah.
I think he'd be pretty similar, because I think he seems to be kind of one game each with Bernabei at the moment. So, and Ralston, the only doubt with Ralston is because there's nobody else to play in that position. That's why I'm thinking it's how would we cover that position? Are we going to bring in some young guy or whatever to cover it? Are we just going to roll them out and just say?
Or he'd done before, he put the left back at right back, or they put the right back at left back and stuff.
Yeah. Play a Wata at right back or something. We're all going, no, what's going on? But you never know. Obviously, I don't know. Ralston obviously was out for a while as well, so he's obviously not really that sharp. Came on against Rangers, looked fairly solid, and then he's obviously played at Rangers away, and he's played in a lot of games where we've not played that well. So I think he's maybe just struggling for a wee bit of confidence. He can get a ball in, and instead of going forward, he would just sort of turn back a lot. So he just kind of looked as if he was lacking a bit of match sharpness or a bit of confidence, especially after the error and stuff as well. But I think I'll probably play Ralston somewhere just because I'm struggling to find what we got. We could play Welsh at right back. Not saying that be right. I mean, he could just give Welsh.
I think he's injured, but
is he? Was he not on the bench?
Was he?
I think
he told me he was injured.
I don't think there's any risk of Welsh playing. I think, and I think that you're probably going to see some of the guys that. I mean,
he wasn't on the bench, so Welsh is out as well. So yeah, that looks a pretty. Do you think maybe he could give some minutes to somebody like Ben Summers or?
Well, I've got Summers and Awata in here. In Vata, sorry, I beg your pardon, is a big question mark, along with Berna and UK, in that same kind of mode. Because when he talks about those guys that should be getting minutes, I think the minutes boys, if you like, is Awata, Abada, and Haksabanovic. I think they're the people he's talking about there.
Yeah.
UK and Bernabe, with some of the stuff we've been talking about today, and again, I think we can echo that quite easily. It's easy to imagine he's maybe said, nah, you've had an opportunity, you dropped the ball, back of the queue you go kind of idea. So I'm undecided about them. But Summers and Vata, there's definitely a sense that they are going to get minutes somewhere, and this game could be it easily.
Yeah.
probably from the bench, but
See, the thing is, like, I agree with you. I think the St Mirren game would have been that game. You know, when you're at home, I would
or
have
the
thought
weekend, yeah.
that would have been the game. But you know, just it's just a lottery to figure it out, really, to be honest, because I just can't see with that comment need to give people minutes. It could be, you know, it could be anyone. But yeah, I think the likes of Haksabanovic and Turnbull, guys that I don't rate at all, actually. I think
I don't think Turnbull's in for minutes. I
Never
think Turnbull
mentioned
is
that, Mark.
firmly.
That's a huge surprise to me.
So,
Yeah, like Quinny. I didn't know that.
so but no, there's. I think at this point with Turnbull, like we've got to make some sort of decision because we can't go through another season like that. Because I don't think he's going to be at Celtic next season. Personally, I think
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I think he'll be gone, but maybe just a chance to showcase something. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I would agree with the point that there's not been a great display of, you know, Ange putting real faith in him. I think every time that he's done that, he's kind of done nothing. So I'm not that convinced by him giving them minutes. Haksabanovic probably a more chance of getting minutes.
Yeah.
This is the predicted lineup thing. I always like doing this when I'm thinking about the Celtic team when I'm trying to like work out for myself. It's a really horrible screen to share. I'll try and zoom in, make it. It's maybe a bit friendlier when I find Celtic. There we go. So I think Joe Hart is probably the guy you're going to pick to start in goals, isn't he? If you're going to try and predict the team here. Ralston, I think it's probably what we're saying about 80-90%. It's probably going to be starting unless something wacky happens. Wacky potential, maybe 20% of the match, you know.
I think
he'll
Starfelt's a bigger risk than Ralston because
really?
Starfelt. Well, he doesn't rotate Starfelt, but you're playing 3 games in the space of a week. So is he just going to play Starfelt every game until the final? Maybe he does. I don't know, but like, I mean, there's no Welsh as well, is there? So I suppose that the main candidate for getting some minutes over Starfelt would probably be Welsh, just based on minutes. So probably is quite nailed. But I wouldn't be surprised to see just something daft like Kobayashi and Iwata, and then like having like McGregor and Hatate in with Ben Summers or something like that. Like, it would just, I know that would seem outlandish, but Ben Summers Academy Player of the Year, you know, and Ange's had them in these squads. He's put them in squads, so he must be putting them in a squad because he thinks that this guy could come on at some point. So anyway, I know that's pretty wacky, but I suppose from an SO5 point of view, if you've got Starfelt and the scores well, then you probably want to risk him in a week like this. That's the problem, isn't it? Like,
I've got Kobayashi down there as 82% have been dropped. Oh,
really?
Yeah, I can see that on the screen.
I think he'll be back in.
I've got his I put the question mark on. I don't know. I think he's of the front 3 the safest to start probably from the weekend, but I could see a wholesale change. I could see those 3-minute guys that come on at, you know, Abada and Haxa. But I could see it being 2 of them with Maeda, because I think you're right, McBride. I don't think Kyogo starts after playing 90, and I don't think Jota starts after playing 90, just with the jobs share kind of stuff we've seen from Ange this season. But Maeda, I think, is maybe the exception.
That's too high. Like 96, 97%. Just because Ange just said we're going to rotate. So I missed the last one because I was off, obviously, on holiday, and you guys said we'll go strong, we'll rotate, then we'll go strong again, and that's making a lot of sense based on what he's done on Saturday. Then, so if you're going to put your team out and play guys that usually play, then you've got to prepare yourself for a huge risk that they're not going to start. Now, that doesn't mean that Furu might not come on and score 2 goals in the last 15 minutes. So if you've got Furuhashi or whatever, you still want to play him, then that's fine. He's not an AA guy or whatever, but I don't think he'll start. I just don't think he will start. But
it seems that way. I think I can see that, certainly based on getting a 90 minutes, which he very seldom does. That would say that there's a strong chance that he's going to sit out the entire game.
I'm just deleting all my teams here, by the way. I'm going to have to.
So Who do you think's more likely? Who do you think's more likely if only one was to start? Do we think it'd be Haksabanovic or Abada right now?
Haksabanovic.
I'd say so too. What do you think, McBride?
Both.
If you're,
I think
Abada Maeda drops too.
He played Abada at Ibrox, so he started Abada at Ibrox after having no games. Fair. So if he's talking about giving somebody minutes, then I think Abada would be a pretty good candidate. I think Haksabanovic, you might even see Haksabanovic playing as a more attacking midfield player like he did. I think he came on in that position against St Mirren when we needed a goal as well. So I mean, O'Reilly, I'd love him to play, but he started a lot of games, and he's another guy where with Moy out or whatever, you would probably want to get a wee rest into him, and then play Aberdeen and then play the cup final, because Moy doesn't really look fit at the moment. So and you probably want to be playing one of those, I would have thought, against Inverness. Has anybody heard anything in Moy? I mean, obviously he didn't even make the bench, but like, he's one of these complete mad ones where like he gets back in training and Ange just starts him and just gives him 50 or 60 minutes to try and get some minutes into his legs. I don't know. I haven't seen anything on him.
Yeah. No, I've not seen anything either.
I think he's out.
I would be worried about O'Reilly, but I'm also not worried in this. I wouldn't be, because there's no Moy, because I think the manager's shown already that he does want Moy or O'Reilly in that role. He wants somebody doing that. Maybe that could be Iwata, because we've seen Hatate, we've seen it at the weekend. He was doing the forward press job that has mainly been synonymous with O'Reilly when we've had that 3-man midfield of Rio and McGregor alongside him. But when I was picking through this, I ended up like, I think Rio, even if it's a right back, I think Rio's starting this game no matter what. He's going to play 60 minutes, maybe 70. McGregor, I think, is probably a 95% going to start, but again, failing the curveball, maybe he doesn't. I think Iwata probably is nailed on to start on the minutes comment, as well as what we're talking about with some of those forward players there. But could it be a midfield of Iwata, McGregor and Hatate? That just feels a bit small, a bit diminutive. I don't think we've ever seen a midfield like that.
They might try it. I mean, I think Hatate in that position would be pretty good, but look, you just, I don't know.
I like that. I like that midfield. I'd like that midfield to get a chance. I think that, you know, I've seen a couple of comments come in there, like ultimately asking for a ball-winning midfielder.
Yeah,
probably the best one we've got in the squad at the moment is Iwata. You know, let him get in, let him, you know, get a decent chance to just play as a pure 6, and let McGregor play his normal position and Hatate just have free roam of attacking space. And I'd like to see them three in a midfield.
I think the interesting thing as well is like guys like O'Reilly, like he could easily come on and do a 75 with 20 minutes to go and stuff as well. Obviously, you want him to start because he's taking the set pieces and everything with Moy being out. But there's a lot of guys here where you think they'll probably get some game time, and it's a case of if Celtic are going to score a couple of goals, but the last couple of games against Hibs have always scored a couple of goals, where the goals come earlier, the goals come later on. And there's an element of obviously a gamble with who's going to start because there's nothing to play for, and just because of the succession of games, because sometimes we do rotate for those games anyway. So I guess you just got to try and pick guys who you think like score well and try and fit them in. But looking at it, I was a bit doubtful on Starfelt, but I think actually seeing who's available and stuff, and like not having Welsh there, and so I just think like who else is going to play, you know, like he's probably just, unless he played Iwata and Kobayashi and played other guys in midfield. But then again, we know Moy, no fancy in Turnbull. Who else is going to play in there as well, you know? So
I think that's the thing, like, and he's not trusting that guy Lawal, you know, he's I mean, if he gets minutes, that's the end of me. I can't believe if he get a game, but
I just put on screen there. O'Reilly's had 5 sub appearances, and his AA is incredible. It's better than some players. He's better than Furuhashi, basically.
Yeah. So I think that's why O'Reilly's probably he's not the biggest risk, because he's either going to start or you would imagine he'll get some minutes. So yeah, Hart, Ralston, Starfelt, Kobayashi, Bernaby, Tati, Kalmak, Turnbull, Maeda, Owen, Jota.
You lost me at Turnbull.
Yeah, I don't think Turnbull will start. But I mean, if there's any chance of a game that he's going to start, then it'd probably be this. And I think Maeda did come off, but I don't know. He tends to rotate Jota at the best of times. So Jota been on the game till the end. I just think he'll probably start on the bench. But again, he's a guy who could do an 80 from the bench, no bother. So, he's still a useful guy to have. But I don't see him starting. I think he'll start against Aberdeen instead.
So I think I'll be saying. I think I'll say the back five I've kind of went away from quickly, but I would say I'd probably go with Ralston after chatting with you guys. And I think it could be Kobayashi and Bernaby. They probably do come in like we've seen already. That midfield, the ones I've picked on logic, I'm going to stick with because that's where my logic's taking me. I think Forrest is probably not a bad shout, but we're talking about super subs and stuff like that for SO5 and Cap 220 modes. Forrest is a great shout if you've got a card for him. But when it comes to the forwards, I think Maeda's the only one I'm choppy on. I don't know if Maeda gets to start or not. I think he's the only one that started at the weekend that could start midweek because he has teacher's pet. He has the Energizer buddy. He doesn't stop running constantly.
Look at his minutes though in those last two games, 71, 27. I think I would fancy Maeda to start this one.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, I can deal with that as well. So, and I'd probably drop Abada to the bench then. Yeah, so I'd probably imagine Haksabanovic gets a chance to start because he's got his new shiny teeth. I don't know if you've seen Haksabanovic's new shiny teeth. He's definitely going to be a mainstay player in the team now. But he's got a grill. He's got a proper grill, big shiny teeth, and he's ready to rock. So I think that's a statement of intent. He's also had a good meeting with somebody at some point, and he's feeling confident about himself to go out and get his big shiny teeth sorted. So I think it'll be Haksabanovic. And I'll go with the influence of all that's been going on for the last hour and 5 minutes. And I think, probably Maeda will survive the starting 11 from the weekend. So that's probably what I would like for our predicted 11.
Yeah, I think Abada might start, but anyway,
very good chance of it.
It's a tough call, and it is like we're trying to give people a bit of guidance and try to sort of rationalise like what's going to happen with our own teams and all that sort of stuff, but like at the end of the day, like we're trying to predict in what the rotation is going to be, and then like we might just be completely wrong. Remember that game we played against Kilmarnock away, and Ange just left Jota and Vickers out. But at that point, we didn't know that Vickers was carrying a knee injury either, so nobody knew that the guy was playing through a knee injury. Taylor was pulled out the Scotland squad. He was carrying a bit of an injury and stuff, and he's played a lot recently. But again, maybe he's still carrying it. I don't know.
He's been injured a lot this season, Taylor. Even going through that today, we've seen him leave the pitch on substitute injury, notifications. So he's definitely been battered and bruised this season, and maybe the Bernaby minutes is something he needs at the moment. It's been a long season.
I think Bernie will play, and then either they'll share the minutes against Aberdeen, or they'll just play Taylor and just get back to kind of work full strength. I get flag day, full strength. Want to go in with a bit of confidence for the cup final type attitude. Manage the minutes midweek back to.
I fully agree with you. I think we're all generally synced on the Aberdeen team. I think it's going to be it's going to be Hart, Taylor, probably Kobayashi, Starfelt. I'd imagine it's going to be Ralston, and it'll be Hatate, McGregor, and O'Reilly. Up front, Maeda, Kyogo, and
Jota.
That would be that team, and I think we could probably safely say, if that's not the team, that will be one player away from being the team.
Yeah.
But I think I can see some of the comments there with some of the suggestions, and they might well be right. the team is envy's guess at this point. I think it's just clinging on to those words that Ange said, players will get minutes. It really could be anybody at this point.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much gets us to the Hibs game. We didn't want to go with a predicted scorer last time. We thought we'd try and keep it on brand a little bit more and go with who we think will be the highest scorer in the game. Now, maybe the highest scorer is the starter. We've seen Turnbull against Hibs earlier this season get a 95 from the bench. So it's not impossible that the highest scorer is a super sub or something. If you were to try and pick who do you think will be the highest scorer for Celtic against Hibs, I'll start with you, McBrideACE, the Scottish Whale.
Starfelt. Scoring pretty well at the moment, isn't he? So, he did, 62 or something against St Mirren. So, yeah, I think, obviously Hibs away, so their tails might be up a wee bit, but they're conceding a lot of goals and stuff at the moment. So if Celtic get into a bit of a rhythm or whatever, then I could see some big scores. So yeah, I'll probably go with Starfelt. I think he'll build a good AA.
I was going to say Starfelt as well. I think I think it for the same reasons. Like I feel Hibs will give up a lot of possession to us. I think that they'll be frantic as they have been in the first 15 minutes of games where they're really high intensity. They'll come at us, then that'll kind of fade away, and then it's going to be a game where they're going to be defending in their box, and we're going to, depending on who we play that as. But I would fancy Starfelt as the highest scorer.
I would go with, on the basis that he starts, I'll take the gamble that he does start for whatever gamble it is. I'll go with Hatate. I think he loves going away to Edinburgh, no matter if it's Hearts or Hibs. He loves going up there and doing some damage from right back, centre mid, anywhere. So I'll go with Hatate. If you're watching this after we've been live, of course, feel free to let us know who you think will be the highest scorer. Also, as well, by the way, we do have a competition to give away 4 VIP tickets to Trophy Day, Celtic versus Aberdeen. You've probably seen the little ticker at the bottom of the tape, the tweet and the post I've put out for it here, there and everywhere. But the deadline is tomorrow at 3:00. So if you've been thinking about it and not done it yet, do yourself a favour and just day it the night. You can redraft your team between now and the deadline if you want to go and check out some stuff later on. But do yourself a favour and just do it. 1 ticket is given away by Random Raffle. So even if you finish last, you've got a chance of winning a ticket, Links in the description of this video if you want to go and check that out. It's been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, we've not got Sean here anymore, but guys, thanks a lot. It's been great.
Cheers, boys.
Thanks for hospitality on Saturday as well. Much appreciated.
Hail, hail. More in the hoops.
Hail, hail.